אני מאמין באמונה שלמה בביאת המשיח. אני מאמין ויחל לפי שיתממע עם כל זה אחכה לו עם כל זה אחכה לו בכל יום שיבוא.
Welcome to Passages. I'm Michael Kigel. We are going to reveal the name of the Messiah of this generation, believe it or not. Actually, I'm joking. We're not going to reveal the name of the person, but we are going to talk about how each generation in history has a potential candidate for messianism, for messiahhood. We have with us two distinguished scholars, Chiam Klein, who teaches at Chat, and where else do you teach?
Darchei Torah
and Tiferet Beis Yaakov, and Rachael Turkienicz, who is a professor at York, who has her own school, the Learning Center, and is the host of Uncommon Ground. So what's his name?
Every man.
Every man.
Ooh.
Oh, that's nice.
Every man has the potential to contribute to bringing Messiah.
Right. And to being Messiah?
Into bringing Messiah. From my understanding, Messiah has three models. One is King David, the other is Moses, and the third one is Yosef. And each one of these brings something different to the messianic table, as it were. And the combination of those three in one person might be something to aspire for, but I don't know if it's actually required. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs, in this wonderful book, The Heal a Fractured World, tells the story of this Hasidic Rebbe who says that Moshiach will come when we bring him, and we no longer need him. And
when we no longer need him. Oh, that when he's superfluous.
In other words, when he's superfluous. In other words, the conditions for the Messiah obligate us, and I think this is one of the things that the Lubavitcher Rebbe used to, press, that people should do masim tovim and mitzvos to create the kind of atmosphere where a Messiah could come. Yeah. And I don't know, I don't negate the possibility that it's an individual. We know that the Gemara says that the rabbis, that the Talmidim of 5 rabbis disputed who was Moshiach, and the name Moshiach they agreed would be the acronym put together of the first letter of each of their names. So I don't know if there's an actual person without whom the Messianic era can't come into existence. I'm also...
Sounds like 5 guys named Mo.
Okay,
it might. Named Mo.
Okay, it might also be an era rather than an individual. Right. So, these things are not clear. And I think, as Rachael said just before we started, I think one of the best answers, and I think this is very important in Judaism, is I don't know is an extremely legitimate response. Right. Because so many things are paradoxes and without being contradictions, that these are areas that the mind cannot, the normal rational mind cannot comprehend. They may be through Kabbalah and through other esoteric forms of knowledge, or through tradition or Masorah or prophecy, where this kind of information is accessible, but not being any of those, or particularly knowledgeable in Kabbalah, my rational mind tells me that each of us has to contribute to a Messiah. I mean, we know that Rabbi...
I want to see what Rachael thinks about this.
It's so huge, and yes, Chaim, I think the answer to all these questions, as you said, as we talked before, is I don't know, and now that we know that we don't know, now let's talk about it, which is really what the rabbis in the Talmud say every time we approach these topics, and do exactly what Chaim just did, which is to say, are we talking about an era? Are we talking about a person? Are we talking about when we're so ready we no longer need it? Or are we talking about when we're so desperately in need read that we probably wouldn't listen to it. So, you know, they're trying to make sense of all of this as well. The question of in every generation there is a candidate who could be the Messiah, of course, then brings the next question of based on what? So how could this person be the Messiah? How could we make this person the Messiah? Are we even supposed to? So when the text talks about one day there will be a messenger, right, which is what this word means, a person to come, a deliverer, is that descriptive or prescriptive? Are we sitting there saying, oh, that's a description of someone, so let's just sit tight and hang in there because one day that person's going to come. I know that because the text described it. Or was the text being prescriptive, saying one day this person will come if you fill this prescription, fill the prescription, the person will come. And this is, in order to do that, I have to have that candidate so I can fill the prescription. And now we, of course, are discussing, okay, how am I going to fill that prescription?
But the candidates being there is descriptively true or not, right? Or
At all
is it a
times.
prescriptive issue, whether we should be building that candidate and make sure that he's always there standing in the sidelines ready to jump in whenever needed?
Right. So there are some rabbis in the Talmud who say both are true at all times. Mm-hmm. So you always have a candidate fulfilling the description, and then you always have the free will of the generation as to whether or not to fulfill the prescription.
But who, in theory, it sounds nice, but who's actually doing that? Is there a team of people who are preparing this individual in any given generation, this cabal? I mean, surely not. We don't have, we haven't had that happen in every generation.
The actual person?
Yeah, the actual person. I mean,
I have to share a story that was wonderful. When you teach Torah to adolescents, and Chaim's been in this position, I've been in the position, I hope you've been in the position, everyone should be in this position, because you learn so much from each of the stages. But when you teach the concept that every generation has its candidate, inevitably, they're all going to sit there with their friends and think, do you think it could be me? Do you think it's you? I don't think it's you. It's like, and they have this discussion about if it's in every generation, you know, it could be somebody we go to school with. It could be somebody I met at camp. It could be somebody I did. And it brings out a whole different perspective of looking at the person sitting next to you and treating them differently. So it's almost as if the concept that that person exists in the generation is already changing the generation. It's already changing the way we're looking at each other.